It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of March 3rd, 1995. 5 movies to look at today, so let's go ahead and get right to it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Chevy Chase and Jonathan Taylor Thomas starring in Disney's Man of the House. I mean, when you watch the trailer for this movie, it doesn't look that bad. It definitely looks like it's something that could be very interesting. This is still Chevy Chase when he was still trying to do his typical shtick that he did, the stuff that made him famous for, but this was also kind of him trying to branch into his newer form. Somebody who did a review for this kind of summed it up best. It's like he was trying to mix himself between his old self, the clumsy goofball who destroys things, while you also have in this new self, who's this kind of more sensitive actor. And really, I think that he's one of the major problems with the movie. Is that he just really he can't really find the right mix to actually make this work. He has potential to make this work, but he can't really get any good chemistry with Jonathan Taylor Thomas, nor could he really do it with Farrah Fawcett. Farrah Fawcett hardly has anything to do in this movie. She's part of the main reason why he's even in here. He's supposed to be her new boyfriend, and she's hardly in the movie for the second half of the film. In fact, this movie takes a couple of weird twists and turns that don't really make a whole lot of sense. I remember watching this movie the first time, and I thought to myself, what is going on in this movie? I was a little kid watching this movie for the first time, and even then I was just kind of like, what the hell is going on here? Because you think it's going to be just one simple thing: Jonathan Taylor Thomas screwing around with Chevy Chase's new potential stepfather, but then it just takes this turn that really the trailers do not show a whole lot of it in. It just feels like Disney was trying to make another knockoff Home Alone film in the second half of the movie, and it just didn't work at all. This movie, there's a lot of promise here. There's some good ideas, some little funny gags here and there, but really, the movie just feels like a real wasted opportunity. The story is all over the place. The jokes, some of them could be really funny. Most of them are not. The cast is really good, but a really good cast, but they're given a really lackluster script to work with, and I don't know, man. I was really surprised that this movie was not that good. This is something that even as a kid when I saw it, I realized, yeah, this is not a very good movie, despite all the promise that it had to it. And yeah, it's a real wasted opportunity on so many levels. You have a lot of stuff here that could make this work, and it's just not there. It's a movie that really does not have a lot of lasting longevity to it, really. And yeah, that's really much all I got for you, because like I said, I remember this movie, and I remember not liking it back then. I certainly don't like it now that I've seen it again for this particular episode. So, yeah, real wasted opportunity there. But it was a big hit back then, so they got something right at least, I guess. Something at least people wanted to see at least. But that's just my opinion. So anyway, that's Disney's Man of the House. So let's move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is Jeff Goldblum and Alicia Silverstone starring in Hideaway. Well, of course, you got to get the guy who did The Lawnmower Man to do a movie about a guy who comes back using technology, and he actually and whatever is when he gets revived, all hell breaks loose. And yeah, it's safe to say that when Dean Koontz' novels get made into a movie, they're not Stephen King. Even Stephen King has had some notable misfires, one of which we'll get to later on. But Hideaway, Jeff Goldblum's in here. He plays a man who dies in a car accident. He's revived 2 hours later, and he encounters these frightening visions. He begins to understand that he is psychologically connected to a serial killer, and that by cutting himself, he can actually induce the visions and see through the killer's eyes. However, the visions work both ways, and the killer can also see through his eyes, and it's really, really complicated on so many levels. Like I said before, this is one of the early film roles for Alicia Silverstone, and actually, Jeremy Sisto is in here, who they were both in Clueless later on in the year, which, needless to say, was a much more successful movie. You also have Christine Lottie, Alfred Molina, Raydon Chong in here. I don't know. The story overall doesn't really have a whole lot there to work with, and it just doesn't really work. It's a movie that I really didn't see any potential from this whatsoever. Just from that trailer alone, just from the trailers alone. And this is a movie that really misfired big time. And like I said, Dean Koontz' novels really have not translated well to the big screen. I'm actually looking at the list of books that have been made into movies. I don't think a single one of them has ever been successful. Look at this. I'm looking here. Demon Seed, The Passengers, Watchers. I mean, Watchers, I saw the trailer for a while ago and looked like it had some promise to it. But even then, I don't think that was successful. Whispers. Yeah, I didn't see anything in particular there that really stood out. But you know what? Like I said before, Stephen King had his misfires too, and we're going to look at one of them right now. This is The Mangler. Before we jump into that one, I just realized that I completely skipped over the other movie that came before this one that was a little more successful. But we'll get to that one after this one here. I mean, either way, the connection here I think works better. But yeah, The Mangler. I mean, they sold it with Toby Hooper, the director of Poltergeist. Well, the credited director of Poltergeist, if you want to believe the story that Spielberg actually directed that movie. Robert Englund, the star of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Stephen King's short story, because it's funny how he didn't like his name being on the thing for the Lawnmower Man, but he says yes to this. And I mean, do you really think that this movie had any kind of success? I mean, it's basically a story about a killer laundry press. I mean, it's like, you ever see that Family Guy bit where Stephen King is selling his latest novel, and he's telling the publisher it's about a lamp monster, and the publisher's just like, "You're really not trying anymore, are you?" And then he's just like, "When can I have it?" I mean, that's probably what they were thinking when they made it. Is when they greenlit this movie. It's just like, "You're not even trying anymore, are you?" And it's just like, okay, let's get it going. And I mean, what more do you even need to say about that? It's a really dumb idea, and dumb ideas sometimes potentially turn out to make for really good movies, but this is a really stupid premise. I mean, a killer laundry press. I mean, here's an idea to not get killed. Just stay away from the laundry press. I mean, the laundry press isn't going to get up and start killing you. You get up from up where it is and killing you. I mean, it's basically Darwinism. If you're standing right next to this thing that supposedly kills people, it's just like, just get away from it. It's just like, but not in this movie. And would you believe it? Apparently, it led to a series of movies that came after this. Another direct-to-video movies, but still, we got two other movies that came out on direct-to-video: The Mangler 2 and The Mangler Reborn, which basically goes to show you that you can make a sequel out of anything, even if it's one of the worst movies ever made, because somebody out there will see that name and just say, oh, I remember hating this movie. I can't wait to see how much they make it worse. But yeah, the bottom line, this movie is not that good. It's a terrible, terrible movie, and it just goes to show you that Stephen King really didn't put a lot of his name on a lot of good stuff. Like, really, this is one of those prime examples of that. So that is The Mangler. But let's get to the movie that I should have followed after Hideaway, and that is the movie Roommates. Another movie that has its heart in the right place, but when you realize that Peter Falk in 1963 is supposed to play a 77-year-old man, and it's supposed to take place 20 years later, and he's supposed to play a 97-year-old man, that's part of the problem where the movie really starts to hugely misfire. Wait a second. I'm just noticing something here, that it says it's 20 years later, so no, this would actually be 30 years later, because this is supposed to take place in 1993, so that means he's 107 years old, which makes this even stupider when you really think about it. I mean, the heart is in the right place, but honestly, we've seen movies like this way too many times that have been done so much better. Like, I keep thinking back to, like, the movie Dad with Ted Danson and Jack Lemmon. Like, that was a movie that wasn't really all that great, but it at least was trying to do something more than this movie does. I mean, the best example of this I think of is I go back to Nothing in Common with Tom Hanks and Jackie Gleason, which is a very underrated movie. One of Jackie Gleason's last movies he made. I think it might have been his last movie he made, and that was a well-made film because the connection between Gleason and Hanks was so good as father and son. And this movie's case, it really falls into a lot of melodramatic territory. I mean, everybody's trying their best here. Peter Falk is doing the best he could. D.B. Sweeney's doing the best he could. So is Julianne Moore. Ellen Burstyn's also in here. Got Ernie Sabella, Pumbaa from The Lion King, Frankie Faison, William H. Macy. A pretty good cast overall here, and some decent makeup overall that got an Academy Award nomination for this film. So there is some warrant in this movie. I just wish the script was a whole lot better. I remember watching this and thinking to myself, there's nothing really much I'm getting out of this movie. I mean, it's not a horrible film, but it's just something we've seen done so many times before in the past and done so much better. This feels like just something that was trying to be a little too manipulative for its own good, trying to be too quick for its own good. It's not a very good film. It's one I remember seeing, and I completely forgot about it almost immediately afterwards. So anyway, that is Roommates. So let's move on to the last movie that we have here, and that is Adam McGowan's... Toy boat. I'm not going to stop now. Adam McGowan's Exotica. I almost said erotica first off, but the basic plot of this movie, you have it set primarily in the fictional Exotica strip club in Toronto. It follows a father grieving over the loss of a child and obsessed with a young stripper played by Mia Kirshner. The guy is played by Bruce Greenwood. It was actually inspired by Igorian's curiosity about the role strip clubs play in sex-obsessed societies, and it's one of the first movies that actually is a pretty solid film from him. A couple movies we've looked at of his already, not really all that good, but this is a really solid film, and it mostly works because of what Bruce Greenwood adds to the table, along with, here I go again, screwing it up again, but I'm going to keep going, is along with Mia Kirshner, who makes her film debut in this, and she hasn't aged a lot since then. She still looks pretty good after all these years, and she really shines in this movie. This is a breakout role for her, and for good reason. Like, she really gives a really good, solid performance and does well enough to stick with the cast that she's involved with here. I mean, she's not just there to be just like a sex object. She actually is a worthy character to watch, and she really has a lot of good acting in this movie. She really gives a good, solid performance in this, and it's a really solid film. It's a very nice, dark, gritty film. It's very well cinematography. It's well made cinematography wise, script wise. It's great. The acting overall is very good too. You also have Elias Koteas in this as well. Sarah Polley, Victor Garber, just a really good cast overall. A really good, enjoyable film. It's a very tense thriller that does a lot to keep you invested in what's going on, and you want to figure out how this is going to transpire in the end. It's a well-made film. I give it a lot of credit for doing the things that it's able to do. Like, this would have been seen as smutty or something like a cheap erotic thriller like all the knockoffs we got after Basic Instinct, but no. This is a movie that actually keeps you invested. It's a sexy thriller, but it doesn't use the sex as overkill. It's used at just the right amounts to actually really enjoy this movie and get caught up in what's going on in the story and all these characters. It's a very good film overall. I highly recommend checking it out. Exotica is a really damn good movie. And so on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we'll look at 4 more movies, including Wolfgang Petersen's star-studded Outbreak. We also have Muriel's Wedding and also Three Ninjas Knuckle Up, as well as The Sum of Us. So 4 movies to look at next time around, and we'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching, I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.